Hey there, Cambridge. This is Nadeem. We're going in tonight, Monday, March 3rd, for a special meeting of the Cambridge City Council to talk about the future of the Foundry building. It's a vacant space right now. It's 50,000 square feet. It's in East Cambridge at 101 Rogers Street, and this meeting will be to talk about how we can actually restore it into a usable building, preferably for arts and culture, education, and hands-on learning. The city has very kindly prepared a lengthy and detailed report that takes into account the outcomes that I and many others hope to see in the building. And the report also looks at a number of alternatives for the space. There's a lot going on here, so here's some of the breakdown of that lengthy report. The building needs around $6 million of urgent repairs, more or less, if it's ever going to open. These are for things like compliant ingress and egress, Americans with Disabilities compliance, and other internal infrastructure. The building envelope, which deals with the roof and other components, would be another $6 million, but the city's noted that this expenditure could happen in the medium term and is not critical for the building to open to the public. In addition, building out the space itself for use by nonprofits or other businesses, individuals, artists, for events, would be some $10 million in the city's estimation. That's a big number, and likely an overestimate in my opinion, but it would allow us to get to a space outfitted for modest and somewhat generic arts, hands-on STEAM education, and nonprofit uses. My personal belief is that we must appoint a citizen board that can define the uses and tenants likely to inhabit the space before build-out, so that the $10 million for build-out can go towards more specific uses, and therefore give us more bang for our buck. We can stretch that money to include a black box theater if we wanted, a maker space or machine shop, nonprofit space, open spaces, studio spaces, art equipment, and much more. $10 million is more than enough, but it won't be money put to good use if we're slow to the punch on appointing a broad-based citizen board, or if they're slow to define what uses the community needs in that space. With little direction, surely the build-out would be too generic to appropriately cover specific common equipment or to set up potential tenants for success in other ways once they inhabit the building. Now, the total cost for rehabilitation of the building and its build-out is about $22 million. And one of the most interesting parts of the city report is that if we as a city spend the whole $22 million ourselves, the city now notes that this will increase the tax rates by about 0.5%, or about $280 a year if you have a $500,000 home. What's so interesting about this is that other big spending, including our school construction, has been mitigated in such a way that the tax rate does not increase so much per $1 million spent. My feeling is that that this increase can be avoided even if we spend the entire $22 million amount. Our financial tools as a city are many, including spending from free cash, exploring the use of the community benefit funds, and budgeting the spend into future years' operating budget more explicitly. There are a host of other tools that would keep us from bonding out the debt or from having a bonded debt impact the tax rate in this way. It's the city's responsibility to mitigate the tax impact of a spend like this, even if we as councilors and residents do decide to spend the entire $22 million. In addition, the city projects that running this space would cost about $700,000 a year. City management would allow us the latitude to make sure the space remains vibrant as an epicenter of arts and culture in the city. I also believe $700,000 to be an overestimate. With a very small oversight and event staff, utilities costs, custodial services, and contract maintenance, my estimate comes in much closer to $400,000. In any case, the cost per square foot to nonprofits, individuals, and other organizations would be around $13 per square foot per year, or maybe closer to $16 per square foot per year when we do account for common spaces. That $13 number is the city's number. What this means is that a 600 square foot studio costing $1,500 a month, give or take, in Central Square would cost $800 in the Foundry. Below market rent at this level would be an important commitment in empowering organizations and individuals with space in the Foundry, yet the building would still break even on costs, even at the city's exorbitant estimate for yearly operating costs. In some sense, the city seems to be talking about a tax increase and the high cost of running the building in order to remind us as councilors and as citizens that money doesn't grow on trees. As well, they should remind us. So let's explore some other mechanisms for funding the building briefly. In one plan, the city pays some money into the rehab of the building but disposes of the building via a developer. The developer would then figure out how to monetize the building by using a majority of the space for commercial purposes, while using that profit to fund a small amount of arts or education space. I'm very much against this plan because even if we start the discussion with talk about a high concentration of arts in the building or a very low cost to those arts organizations, I am convinced that commercial uses will take over the building and will fail to meet our high expectations as an art and culture anchor for the city and for the region. In another plan, the Cambridge Redevelopment Authority could operate with the city, with city input, as a sort of public-private deal broker. With the CRA's help, the city can dispose of the building more easily and may still retain some oversight over its rehabilitation and build-out. Build-out could potentially proceed through a nonprofit developer, and the benefit of this whole system is that the CRA can really move more nimbly through the process of procuring contractors and may even put a bunch of money into the build-out phase as a CRA, as an organization, about $4 million, in order to support the community and do its part in making the East Cambridge area near Kendall more community-oriented in the face of high-density development. So kudos to the CRA for thinking in such a supportive and imaginative way. The question on this middle way forward with the CRA remains, what do we do with this building once the CRA has navigated the build-out process and the building is ready for management? That's something we'll have to navigate together if we go down that road in the coming months. My personal best bet on proceeding with an alternative that's like this is take $12 million of city money, half for the restoration and half for the build-out. Use $4 million of the CRA money to complete the build-out. Empower a citizen board to define specific tenants, governance, and community uses in cooperation with a community-oriented architecture firm defined by the city or by the CRA. Complete restoration and build-out in mid or late 2016 while planning to move building oversight and governance to the system that is found to be both legal, as far as the city is concerned, and citizen-owned. It's the best way forward, with citizen ownership, a build-out process that allows for specific and not generic facilities to be built, and the source of money is clear. And this plan doesn't call for bonds or tax increases. Thank you so much for staying tuned. More updates are sure to come as we have more committee and community meetings, and we look forward to seeing you tonight at 795 Mass Ave in the Sullivan Chamber.